We are short in time as everyone. We would like to do it in 30 minutes as we promised. So let's do the just quick intro. Maybe you can Atul start from your side.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Atul Purohit. I work as the market CTO for Nokia Cloud and Network Services, which is the software arm of Nokia globally, looking at 5G core and some of the other technologies that the telecom providers basically buy from Nokia.
My name is Rob Hughes. I work as an independent consultant also with Centillion, who are involved with Camara project and also the project you saw this morning in San Antonio. But previously, I was CEO for Dentsu in North Asia and global managing partner with Mindshare, which was part of WPP. So very much from the brand advertising ad tech background.
Thank you, Robert. So my name is Viktorija Radman, and coming from Infobip as a telecom business director, trying to cover these network APIs on a global perspective, learning and trying to, of course, spread that knowledge to everyone who is interested of it. Obviously, this previous session from Glenn's side, thank you for it. It was a great intro to this one because it's related to the data set and the networks from mobile network operators, which we still believe, not still, but we will believe in the future as well, that are for sure one of the trusted industry when it comes to data that they can provide, that they are building from the perspective of number of device MSSDN that we are all holding for some time with us. We don't have any more that kind of need to change our MSSDN so often. We are in a possession of one MSSDN for years, and that's how we are building a lot of data in operators' data set, not just the like a static data as a name, surname, or national ID, or identity, wallets, or whatever, but it's more like a completely dynamic data of our behavior, what we are doing, how we are doing, where we are going, what is our location here, there, and all of that can, of course, help to authenticate ourselves, to make our identity and our footprint on the digital landscape. But why, for example, SMS, we are mentioning SMS constantly as a method of authentication, why this is so, let's say, popular? Because first of all, it's easy and it's standardized. Everyone knows how to use SMS. So that's why I think this Open Gateway initiative that is led by GSMA and of course in a collaboration and a need from telco industry is something that is very well accepted and needed on the market because it is coming with a standardization. Of course, network APIs are not something that are here from the 1 year behind because Open Gateway terminology started, I don't know, maybe a year ago, but different kind of APIs, different kind of authentication, different kind of data that operators are exposing are here already for years. But what was one of the gaps as well of many that we already mentioned during today's conversations is standardization. Till we don't have the standardized APIs towards the globe, not just on one country level or one telco group level, it's just not going to pass on the world. Because if some business needs to integrate, needs to send some queries towards telco dataset, if they need to do it on a different ways, on a 3 operators, just 3, they will not do it. It's too complex. So that's why I think that the Open Gateway and Camara is something that will for sure bring some progress. It will take time, but it's obviously already bringing something let's say good. I will later talk about some real cases, but before that, I would like to hear from you, Roy. What is your opinion? What are the drivers, and how you see this Open Gateway and Camara will bring something positive?
Yeah. So if you look at brand perspective, brands really want to connect with consumers. So it could be B2B or business to consumers, but let's speak about business to consumers. And there's a big challenge. Because if you take, for instance, in the US, last year, approximately 100 billion was spent on programmatic advertising, just on that particular form of advertising. But the ANA, which is a trade body over there, estimated around 36 cents in every dollar is what actually reaches the consumer. The rest of it is going on issues like infrastructure, pass-through, targeting, fraud. If you take of that 88 billion, about 22 billion is wasted. Added to that, we now have cookie deprecation, which means that the data that's been used to help profile and target advertising and all that investment, companies are losing line of sight. So that's a challenge. You're losing that resolution, significant investment, but it's also an opportunity, which is why the efforts by GSMA, Open Gateway, and the APIs, which offer deterministic data, if you like, which can complement probabilistic models, or anonymize and feed into other profile and targeting models that are used in the ad tech ecosystem, are critically important. And that opportunity is only going to grow. So that connection between where the MNOs have been and advertisers and brands is only going to need to converge more and more, and there's a huge need to start speaking a similar language and have co-education to be able to do that effectively.
Yep.
Perfect. So from a Nokia perspective, because as you can imagine, the company is more closer to the MNOs because a lot of technology that kind of gets baked into the MNOs network comes from Nokia. So I'll to be able to come to that GSMA Open Gateway, let me take an example. So about 4 years ago, I used to work with a telecom operator here in the UK, and we were kind of invited to a conference in Germany by Mobile EdgeX, which is one of the companies Deutsche Telekom used to own. Google bought it last year, and the conference was kind of divided into two parts. The first, where the operators were supposed to talk about their APIs, the edge APIs, the technology APIs, and how they expose their capabilities. And then on the second day, there were some developers, specifically some gaming companies, who were invited to basically comment on those API strategies that they heard throughout the last day. And the lady from the gaming company, I think it was Electronic Arts, she kind of stood up and said, "I'm here only for the free food and booze. I don't care about your APIs." And really the point that she made was quite profound, because what she was saying was that the job that she has to do to write, let's say, 1,000 lines of code in building a game like Need for Speed from Electronic Arts, possibly 5 lines or fewer of those lines of code is where she needs to worry about the underlying network and the infrastructure. And given that there were 10 other MNOs in the room who were speaking APIs in their own language, mind it, this is 4 years ago when GSMA Open Gateway was not there, right? She said, my life is going to be hell if for those less than 1% of my effort, if I need to understand 5 different telecom exposures. Fast forward to where we are today, I think the Kamara initiative is godsend from that perspective, because I suppose the life of developers would obviously become much more easier, because at least now we are at a stage where the MNOs by and large generally agree at a common language, at a common semantics towards the application developers. And I think this is where the GSMA Open Gateway kind of plays an important role. And I suppose that's the reason why, from a Nokia perspective, we also kind of stepped up and created certain portfolios like Network as Code, where we are trying to abstract these complexities towards the application ecosystem. So the conversation since morning around the ID, etc., is just the top edge of the ecosystem, which is making use of these exposures. But I suppose the applications could be many.
Yep. I agree completely. And if we talk about just network APIs or the data set that operators are exposing, and of course, if you want to consume it, you need to connect with every operator separately still. So this is, for example, what Infobip as a CPaaS provider is bringing on top. So in order for businesses to be able to consume those APIs, or developers to be able to consume those APIs without thinking, oh, this MSSDN that I'm querying about, is it the Telefonica, is it BT, or is it, I don't know, whichever operators in the country or globally, they don't need to think about that if there is a channel partners, or we call it, I don't know, aggregators, or however you want to call it, on top of the APIs that operators are providing. So this is a simplicity that Infobip and other partners are bringing to the ecosystem. But apart from that, of course, not just exposing the APIs, talking about the APIs. This is already there for years. We are talking about the APIs, I don't know, for 10 years already. So the point is, we need to create the market and ecosystem. We need to create the use cases. We don't need to talk anymore with the operators. They know how to build APIs. It's not such a big rocket science. The APIs technology is here for years. It's good to be standardized by Open Gateway and Kamara. It's much needed, but the market is there. So the market is something that we need to understand better, that we need to educate better, and that we need to bring the use cases and solutions. So that's just the API. So here is the API for SIM swap detection. Super Do I need it? For what I need it? In which process, in which step on my process during the, I don't know, end user onboarding or the asking for a money transaction or whatever they are doing, where we need to implement it in order to solve challenges from the market. Usually at the moment when we are talking about the APIs from the operators, somehow first market or the verticals is banking or financial ecosystem, because with the first APIs we try to solve these fraud challenges, and we know that it's there. So these are the industries that we already are talking with for years. We know the pain points. We have some great results I will talk about. But there are other use cases that now are jumping with this Open Gateway initiative. So there are already, almost like 20-ish different use cases, which are not anymore just simple queries like, okay, if SIM swap happened or not, yes, I will do something with it. Can I authenticate it a user with MSSDN and the IP of the device that operators provide? So in a world of the very data-consuming ecosystem, in order even you to authenticate with the biometrics or to receive some very important data set, or if you have an appointment with your doctor online, so you need to have very prioritized connection between yourself, between business and the consumer, your end users, whoever that is. So the network capacity and the quality of demand is something which is coming as a super need. And this is something where Nokia as well is doing the great effort. So maybe, Atul, if you...
So if you look at MNOs, right, so essentially the information already exists for a lot of customers within the network. From a Nokia perspective, we have kind of divided the APIs via GSMA Open Gateway in 3 different tiers, if you like. The first is basically where the information already exists, and all we need to do technologically is kind of scoop that information up to the monetization level and make it available. So most of the examples that we have spoken here since morning are kind of tier 1 APIs, basically, because we are just trying to kind of verify a certain information that already exists in the MNOs network with the use case, with the application ecosystem, and try and tie the knot. Now, if you kind of move up the value chain, the problem with this tier 1 APIs from a MNO monetization perspective is that you can't really charge much, because these are just the information exposure type of APIs, which means you need to, from an MNO perspective, you need to look at huge, bigger wholesale contracts to be able to make any sizable money. Now, if you look at the infrastructure readiness, the telcos have been investing a lot over the last 5 years in 5G, right? As we all know, here in the UK, we've had 5G launches, we've had spectrum auctions over the last 4 or 5 years, so on and so forth. Now, as a consumer, we only see the consumer offering side of the puzzle. But 5G is more than just the consumer offering, as we all probably know that. Now, hence the tier 2 and tier 3 kind of APIs kind of comes into picture, which GSMA Open Gateway and Camara LFN is putting a lot of efforts in. The tier 2 APIs are where the application ecosystem is asking a certain different behavior from the network. So it's not just fishing for or scooping information out from the network and verifying it. The application is saying, I'm doing something, right? Whatever the application could be in the identity space or some other, shipping vertical or whatever vertical. But the application is demanding a specific behavior from the underlying network. And hence it's trying to kind of push down a configuration in an intent way, which means in an English-like way, saying that here is what I'm trying to do, give me that. And the network should basically behave as a recipient of that and basically make things work from an MNO perspective. So this is tier 2 type of APIs where the value that you can generate out of these APIs is probably higher than what you can do with the information-only type of APIs. And then you have literally the tier 3, the top edge of the APIs, because the MNOs have to invest a lot basically in terms of readiness from a network perspective, so that they can make those capabilities available towards the application ecosystems. So again, the ecosystems could be identity, but then identity is a more sort of consumer-centric type of ecosystem. But you have equally a lot of these industrial ecosystems coming up as well, different industry verticals, manufacturing, all these type of things. So their capabilities like network slicing, I'm not sure if many of the people in the room knows. Certainly Telefonica or likes of other vendors would know about that, but basically it's a capability by which you can the network can sign in blood that this is the quality that I would commit to this application or this demand if somebody were to ask this information from me. So we are trying to basically approach this entire GSMA Open Gateway Linux Foundation across all these 3 tiers of APIs. Tier 1 is where most of the conversation today has been centered around. But then equally, when it comes to higher value APIs, we have to move up the value chain collectively in Tier 2 and Tier 3 as well. So basically, we need to look at across the spectrum, and that's what we are trying to do jointly between Nokia and Infobip, trying to cover the entire spectrum of the exposures.
Yeah. I mean, one of the challenges as well as I see it, of course, the data protection is something that we are all concerned. That's why we put some trust on the mobile network operators, because of course, if they want to keep the license and be on their work, they have to be GDPR compliant. They have to follow the regulation that they are following from telecom perspective, and that's why we trust their data set. That's why we think that mobile network operators are the one who, if we are talking about the trust all the day as well, who can be the trusted industry to believe the data that they are exposing from the identity perspective, from the capacity perspective, and the different kind of market need. What we did, I mean, fortunately, this is still not on a global level. So we have few countries still that are really working and showing some great results already. So UK is one of them for sure, because operators are collaborating. They are discussing together which use case they will bring next on the same level, on the same similar time, now on the standardized way as Camara and Open Gateway is proposing. But there are just few countries as that. The rest are still working on ad hoc level, meaning that, I don't know, some operators in a cooperation with one bank in a country discussing the use case, the rest are not following. So, but I do hope that this Open Gateway initiative, which is now everyone is talking about, more and more operators are joining, that will bring the global aspects and level as well. One of the countries where Infobip somehow put a lot of effort is Brazil. Obviously, it's a country with a lot of frauds, with a lot of opportunities there from the market need. And we had the luck that all the operators, as well as the one in UK, accept to follow and to join, and collaboratively working together with Infobip on exposing the APIs, but to, let's say, as well create the go-to-market strategy. Because as I stated, expose the APIs is not that hard, but to create a go-to-market strategy, to understand the market, to understand the businesses, to even put the proper price tag on the APIs that you are trying to monetize, it's not easy part. So it takes much more effort than just expose the APIs. Luckily in Brazil, we have a great success because of all these aspects that I stated. And of course, the collaboration, Infobip platform on top, exposing one same APIs. All of us are on the market together, talking with the brands. First, let's say, use cases that are there very already, let's say, in the production are for SIM swap detection and fraud protection, and the number verified. These two are like already known. Some case studies are to be written, and now we are coming to this, like, let's say, new use cases that we already see a need as a device location, as a quality on demand, and we will try to replicate what we learned in Brazil to other countries, because for sure collaboration, standardization is a need. Of course, we will not be able to replicate for example, everything as a data protection regulations, because unfortunately, again, this is not standardized globally. Even Europe is having GDPR, and then each country is having the different interpretation of the same GDPR. So it's very, very hard to standardize the things, even on a regional level. And if you want to talk about the global level, it's like almost impossible. So if we talk about with the global clients as one that are running business globally, and they ask, okay, we want to consume, what is your coverage? And then we said, okay, this or that, these 10 countries, everything is standardized, easy to use, super quick, you can integrate, technically is there, and then it's coming, but why? Questions mark. Okay, for this country, you need to fill this form in order to be approved. For this country, you need to follow this kind of regulation. For that country, your policy, constant policy is not good enough. And then we start with the complex part. I don't know if this will be anytime sorted. I don't really believe, but I do hope that at least in some countries that are collaborating on the regional level, we will be able to have at least something very similar, simple on the regional level. Then we will see how we will tackle the global part. I mean, Infobip is a global company, we all know that, so it's not easy as a communication. And it's not easy as a SMS. Everyone knows how to work with SMS. There is no need for compliance. There is no need for consent. It's easy, and that's why it's still there, and it will still remain there for years as a fallback or whatever situation, because it's easy. And what businesses are looking for, it's easiness and simplification. We are still not there. We will be, I hope. So first gap with standardization of APIs we are passing, but let us see what future will bring and how we will be able to solve the other challenges that we are facing with. But from your perspective, Rob, what do you think about the future and those?
Yeah, I mean, brands always, you know, they have this paradox between aggregation of mass audiences, but I want to speak to you or you or you about what you want to speak about. And we saw in the day of life how ubiquitous your digital life is. And if I'm sitting in an agency room and I'm talking to brand people, they say, oh, you know, that person got up at 6 a.m. and they got a taxi and they went to the airport and they went here. These are all touch points. Do I want to engage with my brand to this person in a relevant way? Because if I'm irrelevant, I'm wasting money. But I also need to do it in a compliant way. I need to respect privacy and all of those things. I need line of sight on the individuals, but in a compliant way. So that speaks to the commercialization opportunity. At the same time, we're at this stage now where we have the explosion in data usage. I was in Barcelona in February, and projections of mobile traffic data usage were 3 to 4x over the next 4 to 5 years. Well, how's that going to be paid, right? It's good to have a technical solution and a regulatory kind of solution, but how's that going to be paid for? So making those APIs more accessible, more understood into other ecosystems like the ad tech, the advertising, the marketing economies can be a good collaboration to generate value for both, whilst respecting individual privacy, respecting the technology, and looking for a way forwards, because it's never going to be completely fixed. So it's going to be a moving target.
Great. Atul, any view from Nokia, the future of APIs, Open Gateway initiative?
Yeah, so basically, see, one of the reasons why the operators are suddenly kind of interested in the Open Gateway is primarily because almost every operator across the globe is kind of struggling with the burning question on their mind: how do we monetize our network assets, right? So they've spent a lot of money over the last 4 or 5 years, and basically they need to recover their investments. And just the consumer-centric APIs are not helping them to recover massive billions of investments that they've made over the last 4 or 5 years. So while the tier 1, the basic APIs, which kind of supports the identity consent type of ecosystems, is absolutely necessary and a welcome start from their perspective. And while this industry is obviously kind of maturing on its own, but from an MNO perspective, I think they need to look at higher value transactions. They need to look at avenues for massive monetization of their network assets. And GSMA Open Gateway is kind of addressing all the range of spectrum of the APIs that you have. Some of the APIs obviously are addressing these consumer-centric transactions like SIM swap and identity and consent management and things like that. But then as you move up the value chain, the use cases are emerging, which are kind of a mesh up of these consumer-centric APIs and the network-centric APIs like quality of service on demand and network slices. So you would have scenarios where, for example, you're trying to, fly a drone autonomously or beyond visual line of sight through a drone's corridor to deliver a certain good from point A to point B. Or, for example, as we all know, 8th of August, I think, when Tesla is announcing the robo-taxis, for example. So you'll have all of these use cases coming in. They obviously make use of the underlying network. And while they are doing that, they have various needs from the underlying MNOs, for example, quality of service on demand, for example, because they obviously, if you lose the quality, the taxis would stop, for example. Or if there is a Uber-like treatment that you need to those robo-taxis, for example, sending messages or generating invoices or interacting with the location in real time of where the taxi is, for example. So from a MNO's perspective, obviously they need to move up the value chain and they need to look at these mesh-up use cases, which are kind of emerging across the other side of the platform, across the ecosystems. So I suppose That's what I have to say from GSMA Open Gateway. I think what they are trying to do is kind of starting small, just like a crawl, walk, run phase, if you like. So they are literally at the crawl phase when it comes to already done standardization of the APIs, and now they have to scale up and move towards the walk and the run phase.
Yeah, I think to Atul's point, what I would see, and from speaking to people in the ad tech ecosystem as well, is that the APIs and the MNOs have really valuable data that are not necessarily the single source of all truth, but are an ingredient in that truth in terms of building up profiles as well. And if you talk about network slicing, I mean, there are opportunities. You look at the US market, TV market, spend on there by advertisers. From a standing start, TV advertising, almost 50% of it now is through connected TV, what people might call over-the-top devices. So if you think about that massive value that's going through there, and this is only in the foothills of where this aspect of the digital economy is, this is a huge area that the MNOs, if they get it right, can benefit from, but do it in a way which is responsible and work with the rest of the ecosystem to grow the overall pie. Not everybody's in love with walled gardens. So if we talk about the open internet, if we talk about the Camara open source APIs and so on, this is about really getting momentum in there to help support that.
Completely agree. I mean, the whole ecosystem is, and the stories that we are talking about, is how brands are communicating with the end users, which are in possession of MSSDN. And this communication should constantly be on the top of priorities, especially if it's priority there, because of some businesses should be secure, meaning that we should be able to trust that MSSDN should be able to verify in the background seamlessly, not harming the customer experience if this is the person that they pretend to be on that device. If we trust that MSSDN on base of the not just static data, then dynamic data as well that operators are having stored in their data set. So the plenty of data and information are there. We are looking for the use cases to present to the market. We are looking for the, let's say, gaps and challenges that are there, how to overcome them. Open Gateway Camara for sure is one of the small details that are bringing some benefits, but there are still a lot of things that we should all work on and try to get it to the market properly.
Yep. See, one of the things I'll probably just add is in a long time, the MNOs are at a stage where they are kind of agreeing to something, which doesn't happen quite often, basically, which is Camara, the GSMA Open Gateway initiative. So that's one of the sort of key things that I just wanted to highlight, because essentially if the operators kind of get it right, then they are at a stage where they should be able to participate in these higher value transactions and ecosystems. So far, the approach that the operators had taken historically is to try and own the entire value chain, literally end to end. I think that old mindset has to go. It's almost like letting go of your kids, right? So you create some capability halfway through, like quality of service on demand, like network slice, and then you stop there. You then invite the ecosystems to make use of these capabilities and then complete the entire chain, rather than you go all the way down. So I think that change is coming in from the operator side. So in fact, I will probably compliment Telefonica. They are probably far ahead when it comes to being the champions of GSMA Open Gateway and the types of scenarios that they've managed to think through, not just in the consumer, but even in the high end of the value chain, like QoS and network slicing.
I agree.
Okay. We've got time for one question.
One question.
Can I ask it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you guys have all talked about the importance of monetization. What can you tell us about the commercial models for Open Gateway and how operators monetize these APIs?
For now, it's going more into pay by request you're asking for. So because it's a simple APIs like request and response, once we will be there to commercialize the network capabilities and the network capacity, then we will probably need to talk about it.
Another model could be, as a data call within a UID2 component, which is an ID component within the ad ecosystem. So if there's a data call, that's another potential monetization opportunity.
Yeah, so in fact, some of the basic APIs, they have kind of been commoditized, if you like. The SMS is a given feature of the core, network core, which means it's free. The network operators don't have to do anything more to do more, send more SMSs. So basically, the pricing model, the commercial model for such APIs is basically based on bulk, bundles, things like that. Whereas if you look at the high value network APIs, I think it might be sort of more value driven, could be more even revenue share model. So a lot of these models are kind of evolving with the adjacencies that we have seen, for example, what Twilio does or what Cinch does, right? So they have, I think, an Infobip as well. I think that the models are kind of evolving from that commoditized into a more sort of value-driven revenue share approach.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Cheers.